What do you think the chances are that Putin ever tries to deploy any nukes, whether it be like a tactical nuke or a small nuke?
Zero. There's not a lot of. So I shouldn't say zero. So here's my thing. So nuclear weapons aren't that useful, and I say that because. Especially we're talking about tactical weapons, which is something that when you had Annie on here, like she didn't really, Annie Jacobson, she didn't really get into the difference between tactical and strategic weapons. I think probably because she doesn't believe that there really is, but there is.
Right. Well, she talks about in the book. She explains that there's this guy. One of the guys she based her book off, Billy Waugh, who is a CIA mercenary who he did a bunch of tests where they simulated deploying a tactical suitcase nuke.
Suitcase bomb. Well, it's really the size of like a beer keg. You should call it a beer keg bomb.
Okay.
Yeah, if you actually look that up, it looks like
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like a beer keg. It's not a suitcase, it's a beer keg. Yeah, you can look that up.
Yeah, find that.
The suitcase bomb, but it's a beer keg. It's really freaking big. Engineers actually had those to like destroy infrastructure. So back in the 1950s, 1960s. Yeah.
Oh shit, you're right.
That's a beer keg.
Holy cow.
It's not a suitcase. It's a beer keg.
No, not even close.
So back in the 1950s, 1960s, we used gravity bombs, regular bombs dropped that were nuclear from planes like the Thunder Chief, the F-104. And the idea was that, like, all right, if the Russians are coming close to a bridge in West Germany, we need to knock that bridge down. We're going to use a nuclear weapon on that bridge. Why? Because you don't have to be that surgical. If you look at the Than Hoa Bridge in Vietnam, it took the U.S., I want to say 7 years to destroy that bridge, the Than Hoa Bridge. 7 years to destroy that thing until it was finally destroyed. Like they finally dropped a span with the. I did a whole video on this. Yeah, they finally dropped that span with a laser guided bomb in 1972.
Wow.
1965 to 1972. That's how long it took them. And we had hundreds of sorties against this bridge. All right. Nowadays,
Steve, can you turn that fan off?
Nowadays we have laser guided weapons, GPS guided weapons.
Thank you.
It's a lot easier for us to destroy infrastructure. But back in the 1950s, 1960s, it made sense to use a nuclear weapon against something. Now, if you want to talk about today, there's basically two valid cases or two understandable cases in which you'd use a tactical nuclear weapon. You'd use a tactical nuclear weapon to stop an advance. Let's say the Ukrainian army's broken through your defenses. They are headed to the Black Sea or the Sea of Azov in order to link up or in order to cut you in half. It would make... Now, I'm going to invoke a special rule here. I call it the Very Bad Things rule. Have you ever watched the movie Very Bad Things? There was so the movie Very Bad Things was about a guy's at a bachelor party and the exotic dancer they invite to their hotel room accidentally gets killed.
Oh, no.
While they're partying with her. And Christian Slater has the greatest line I've ever heard in a movie where he goes, if you take away all of your morals and all of your values, what we have is a 105-pound problem that needs to be moved from point A to point B. So they move this exotic dancer, and then they suffer the consequences of regret, for the rest of their lives, right? But Christian Slater wasn't wrong, right? He wasn't wrong. So if you get in the mind of Christian Slater from Very Bad Things, you can go, a nuclear weapon is a perfectly valid tool to use on a unit that is breaking through your lines because it'll stop it like that. It'll stop that advance. So if, let's say, the Ukrainians break through and Russian forces just start collapsing and collapsing and collapsing, they will probably use a nuclear weapon. They could use a nuclear weapon, a gravity bomb, most likely delivered by a Su-34 bomber, on the advancing lines. It'll stop the attack like that. They do that, they might risk a conflict with NATO. But it is a valid use for that weapon. So that's one use case for that weapon. Second use case would be to destroy an underground bunker that you just can't reach with a conventional weapon. So the Iranians are building, they have their uranium enrichment facility.
A bunker buster.
Bunker buster, yeah. So you put that thing down. Yeah, that would be another valid use. But for the most part, you're restricted to, third valid use against shipping. A nuclear weapon, you put a nuclear weapon in a hypersonic missile, you launch that against an aircraft carrier, you've got yourself a carrier killer. So that would be a useful use case. So 3 use cases. And that's pretty much it. Everything else, so I don't really see, Ukraine doesn't have any aircraft carriers. Now, you could use a nuclear weapon and detonate that and then run people through the debris field, run people through the blast. So you use a nuclear weapon to open up a hole in the lines and then run people through that crater, or at least on the periphery of that crater. You attack through the crater or the affected area. So you don't even have to detonate it on the surface. You detonate it in airburst.
In the atmosphere,
There's less fallout, right?
EMP effects.
There'll be some, right? But you detonate that, you push everybody through that hole. There's not a lot of radioactivity because it was airburst. That was another thing Annie didn't talk about, the difference between airburst and surface burst, but that's fine. But you run everybody through that hole, and now you can break through. And now you can, get into Ukraine's rear. But does President Putin have the troops and the supplies to actually exploit a breakthrough? Because not only do you have to exploit that breakthrough, then you have to support that breakthrough. Now you need to get them petroleum, lubricants, food, fuel, water, all of that stuff through that breakthrough. Do you have the forces to exploit that? That's the question. And I don't think they do. Right? Because again, they can't build up any forces, because as soon as you start building up anything greater than a company, what happens? You get hit with rockets. That's actually the dangerous part of us not giving aid to Ukraine. They're never going to run out of rockets, but it's going to get to the point where they're going to have to be more surgical or more judicious on when they use them. And that's kind of scary, because then if that happens, now they're at a point where it's like, crap, when do we can use this rocket in this forest building up here, or we can use this rocket in this forest building up here. That is a dilemma. And I've always said, you want to create dilemmas, not problems, for your adversary.
What do you know about our nuclear interceptor system? The U.S. has this thing called the interceptor system, where we have, I think, 44.
Yeah, we have 4 at Vandenberg, and then we have 40 in Alaska.
Right, that are designed to basically intercept nuclear warheads out of the sky, right? And it's essentially an analogy for that is like shooting a bullet out of the sky with another bullet.
Yeah, we have...
How effective do you think that is?
I mean, so supposedly with all the tests they've done, it's about 50% effective, right? But if you're dealing with...
Each rocket's about 50% effective, yeah.
That we know of, right? Because they've done limited amounts of tests.
Right.
We don't have a lot of these things. Now, we have a couple of arrows in our quiver. We can shoot ballistic missiles down today. We've been able to do it for years. We've been able to do it since the 90s. So have you heard of the Aegis system?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Aegis system, it's on every U.S. destroyer and cruiser. The Aegis system, it is a robotic killer.
What does it stand for?
I actually don't remember. What Aegis... I don't think Aegis is an acronym.
Just go to...
I think Aegis is...
No, Aegis system, and then click on all.
I actually think that Aegis is just the name of the system. I don't think it actually stands for anything.
It's not an acronym? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think... it's just the name for the shield.
Integrated Naval Weapons System, which uses computers and radars to track and guide weapons and destroy enemy targets. It was developed by the Missile and Surface Radar Division of the RCA and is now produced by Lockheed. Okay.
Yeah. So this thing is able to intercept ballistic missiles. I think it was the SM-3 or SM-6. When it comes to naval topics, there's a reason I call the Navy the Department of the Boat People. All right, I get a little... It's talking about naval stuff. Okay. But there is a missile that can take out ballistic missiles. When we've been able to do that, we did that with the Scud. I don't know if you remember the first Gulf War, the Scud missile. In the first Gulf War, Saddam Hussein was firing Scud missiles at Saudi Arabia. And the Scud is a short-range, medium-range ballistic missile. And we were maybe or maybe not shooting those down with Patriots. It was kind of a weird thing. So our Patriots are our interceptors. And back then, the Patriot, the PAC-1, or the Block 1 version of the weapon, was a proximity warhead, which would blow up when it got close to the target. So this thing gets close, it blows up, but the problem is that it blows up in a cone. And so as the missile's coming in, the cone is still expanding. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times the cone was kind of missing the missile, was blowing up behind the missile. So that's why we developed different versions of the Patriot that would actually do hit to kill or kinetic, a kinetic kill, the PAC-3 GEM version of the missile. But so we can kill missiles with the Patriot. Mm-hmm. We can kill ballistic missiles with the Patriot. We can kill ballistic missiles with THAAD, which is
what is THAAD?
THAAD is it's another kind of interceptor, theater area, THAAD, defense. I'll have to look that up, the actual name of THAAD. We don't have a lot of THAAD batteries. But THAAD system, THAAD, Terminal High Altitude Area Defense.
There you go.
Yeah, THAAD. So think of it like, if the Patriots started lifting weights, right? That's a THAAD.
Okay.
Right? So we have that system. Now, those systems aren't deployed. There might actually be a THAAD system protecting DC. We actually don't know. There might be THAAD or NASAMS. There's been rumors. Again, you go on dates in the Beltway, like, oh yeah, we have a THAAD system protecting. It's in West Virginia. Like, really? That's always a weird thing because, like, when some girl tells you about that, either they're telling you a secret that you're not authorized to know, or they're full of it, and both of those situations are bad.
Yeah.
Both
I don't think I've ever been on a date where a girl's been bragging about THAAD missiles.
You got to live in DC, right?
That's a DC
you live
thing,
in DC.
Yeah.
It's like
100%.
I know this thing. I know this guy, right?
Yeah.
So
the hierarchy climb.
Yeah, we can shoot down. We did a shoot down of ballistic missiles in I think it was January of 2001, or it was maybe 2002. It was in the UAE. The Houthis launched 3 ballistic missiles at a base in the UAE, in the United Arab Emirates. Mm-hmm. And I actually have a video that I collaborated with several Patriot guys on, and I actually show what the ECS looked like. I show the actual engagement that happened on screen using like this simulator, where we actually show what's going on. And I got to tell you, people said that I had one person say that video is better than the Hurt Locker. It was like more exciting than the Hurt Locker. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I like to make air defense exciting.